Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are out there. Thank you for joining us today on this Sierra Wireless and IoT Evolution webinar on Simplified IoT, how to get your IoT project to ROI faster. If this is not where you intended to be, you should stay because it's going to be really interesting and you're going to get a lot of great content out of it. Just a few housekeeping items before we jump in. We'll be collecting questions from you throughout the session here. Please go down to the bottom of your screen in the dashboard there. You'll see a Q&A button. Just click on that and you can type in your question, and we'll be getting to those at the end. We've got plenty of time reserved to ask those questions. So we'll be asking your questions at the end. Please feel free to send them throughout. Also, pay close attention. We'll have a poll question available to you as we get into the session, and you'll have an opportunity to vote on the question at hand, so make sure that you're taking good notes and paying close attention. Finally, the whole session will be archived and available for streaming after the fact, so you'll be able to share it with your colleagues or tell them all about it. But that is enough out of me, Ken Briota, Editorial Director for IoT Evolution. I'm going to transfer you over to the good hands of our two main speakers today. And they are, up first, Julian Watson, Senior Principal Analyst for IoT at IHS Markit. And he's going to be going first. After our poll, you'll be hearing from Stefan Eriksson, the Director of Product Marketing at Sierra Wireless. So, Julian, I believe I'm going to hand control right over to you.
Many thanks, Ken. Thanks for the introduction. So my name's Julian Watson. I'm an IoT connectivity analyst at IHS Markit. So IHS Markit is a global provider of research and consulting covering the automotive and transportation, natural resources, finance, chemicals and technology, media and telecoms verticals. We have around 15,000 employees across the world. So today it's great to have the opportunity to speak a little bit about the opportunities and challenges for the cellular IoT. So where are we with the IoT or the Internet of Things? Well, the concept of IoT as embedded, machine-to-machine or M2M has been around for years. But today we see that IoT devices and solutions are a lot more sophisticated than, for instance, a decade ago. So 10 years ago, cellular connectivity for M2M, machine-to-machine, was very much delivered over standard 2G and 3G networks. But today, we're beginning to see the deployment of cellular networks that are optimized for IoT use cases and requirements. Technologies such as NB-IoT and LTE-M. So in recent years, we've also seen the increasing availability of competitive, unlicensed alternatives like LoRaWAN, Sigfox, and RPMA. So if we take a look at the SIM space, there's been an ongoing transition from physical to eSIM or EUICC, which has the benefits of providing more flexibility to enterprises because subscriptions can be provisioned and managed remotely rather than requiring physical intervention. Lastly, there's been an absolute explosion in the number of IoT platforms, particularly in the device management and application enablement space. So such growth in the number of IoT platforms, I'd say into the hundreds, combined with the very wide range of options between competing technologies, connectivity providers, and SIM and module providers, can result in great complexity and fragmentation for enterprises planning IoT deployments. So where are we with the IoT in terms of the top line numbers? So our IHS market, we have a pretty broad definition of what an IoT device is. So we see it as one that is directly IP addressable, or a device, for instance, a fitness wearable that can be tethered to an IP addressable device. So we also segment IoT or connectable devices into three types. Firstly, nodes or network endpoints like smart meters or heart rate monitors that typically have very limited or no user interface and pretty limited processing power. Secondly, we have controllers such as PCs, smartphones or tablets that are often used to manage the connectivity of node devices. And lastly, infrastructure such as routers, switches, gateways and cellular base stations that manage the physical transmission of data being generated by devices. So we forecast the total global number of IoT devices at around 40 billion or so in 2020. So of this 40 billion, around 30% or 11 billion will be nodes or network endpoints. So we see this really ramping up over the next few years. By 2025, we forecast that nodes will account for around 29 billion or around 40% of the 72 billion IoT devices installed. So as you can see from the charts here, the most significant driver of connectivity out to 2025 will be the very broad category of commercial and industrial electronics, which not only spans retail electronics and applications and industrial automation, but a very fast-growing segment such as building automation, lighting, power and energy, things like smart meters, security, and the very broad range of asset management and tracking applications. So currently we see cost savings, for instance, those associated with truck roll, as being the primary motivator and driver of enterprise IoT projects. However, it's noticeable that a growing range of companies, for instance, white goods manufacturers, are seeking to shift from being product-centric providers to service-centric business providers. So what role do we see cellular technologies playing in the IoT? Well, cellular's overall capabilities meet many of the evolving requirements of enterprises planning IoT projects. So firstly, there's an increasing number of assets and devices at the edge that require connectivity that will be well beyond the physical reach of enterprise IT technicians. So the ability to provide over-the-air updates and security patches to these remote devices is critical. So some of these devices, for instance, methane sensors, will typically be in a fixed location. Others, like food containers, will be in transit and require more of a mobile solution. What is in common with a lot of these devices is that they require long battery life, they don't have access to mains power, they must have very reliable connectivity and strong security credentials. So we think that compared to other wireless technologies such as Sigfox and LoRa, and wire technologies such as Ethernet, cellular is very well placed to enable enterprises to scale up their existing domestic IoT projects and also provide connected services to customers in international markets. But there are lots of challenges that enterprises face as they seek to develop their IT projects. Getting IoT projects up and running on time, at cost, and actually achieving the original business objectives when the project was first initiated can be very challenging. So between concept and deployment, enterprises face a very wide range of challenges. So some of these challenges relate to how companies are traditionally structured. So in a recent webinar that IHS Markit held, we found that over 60% of enterprises viewed internal business silos, and over 50% of the audience polled saw the fragmentation of customer data across different parts of the enterprise as inhibiting business transformation. But there are also considerable challenges as enterprises move away from concept towards actual deployments. So at this stage, enterprises need to ensure that the different building blocks of an IoT solution, so the hardware, technologies, connectivity management, and the device management, are interoperable, secure, can communicate with the cloud and also internal enterprise systems, and can be deployed not only in additional sites in the same country, but also internationally. So integrating all of these components or building blocks can be highly complex and time-consuming. So this is especially the case when an enterprise works with many vendors and suppliers. But increasingly we're seeing the evolution of, for instance, IoT starter kits and so-called end-to-end solutions that seek to simplify the initial establishment and then ongoing maintenance of IoT projects. So as in many other areas of technology, there's an increasing demand for plug-and-play solutions that simplify deployment and ongoing management projects. There's just one or two key takeaways from this. So IoT devices and solutions are getting ever more sophisticated, but it's a very complex landscape out there of different ecosystems, suppliers, technologies. So there are a very wide range of industrial and commercial use cases, such as asset management, energy and utilities, and all of these will drive connectivity growth. So low power wide area networks in the form of NB IoT and LTE-M will grow the IoT addressable market for cellular because of their low power, deep coverage propensities. We think cellular will largely meet the really rapidly changing requirements for enterprise customers for flexibility of deployment, the ability to manage devices remotely, to connect devices remotely, and provide quality of service security. But even if you look at standardized cellular technologies, there are significant challenges to implementation, such as I mentioned, interoperability between different parts of the building blocks within an IoT solution. So simplification at the integration stage can aid time to market, ROI, and really in the longer term help drive business transformation. So I think, Ken, we have a poll question.
I think we do. Thanks for that. I think it's becoming ever more clear the power of cellular for IoT, and connecting it up with ROI like that is really an important piece of the discussion. So we're wondering about you folks out there in the audience. At what stage is your IoT development currently? Are you already using connected devices? Do you already have an IoT project underway? Do you plan to start an IoT project in the next 12 months? or are you in the research phase and not sure yet about an IoT project? Please put your votes in at this time and then click Submit at the bottom of the slide there. We'll be going to your results in just a few moments. I want to remind you about a couple of housekeeping things. First off, we are collecting questions in our Q&A tab down at the bottom of your screen, so if you have questions throughout, please go ahead and submit them as you think of them throughout the course of the session here. And when we get to the end, we'll have plenty of time for answering those. I think you folks are voting here, so I hope you are. I hope you've all got your ducks in a row and you're getting all voted in. I'm going to jump to the results here in just a moment before we continue on with the session with Staffan Eriksson. He's the Director of Product Marketing at Sierra Wireless, and he's going to talk about simplifying IoT and some of the work that Sierra has been doing in order to streamline IoT solutions and processes throughout the IoT industry. All right, that is all the time we're going to have for our poll here. So let's move to the results. Let's see here. At what stage is your IoT deployment audience, beloved audience? 30.9% of you are already using connected devices. That's great to hear. 23.6% already have IoT projects underway, so that's really promising and cool. 12.2% are planning to start an IoT project in the next 12 months, and a third of you, 33.3%, are doing research and are not sure yet about an IoT project. So we're really happy to have all of you folks in here for our session on simplifying IoT and looking for ROI, but especially you last two groups, make sure you send in any questions that you have as we move forward, which we are going to do right now with our next half of the session here, Simplified IoT with Staffan Eriksson. Staffan, why don't you take over?
Thank you, Ken, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody at the conference call. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Julian. I think it was a very interesting presentation you made, and I share many of the views of the opportunities, but also the challenges that you mentioned during your session. So I would talk about the kind of challenges that we see when we're out talking to customers, when we're working with enterprises and corporates across the globe, and see what are the main challenges and what we as Sierra Wireless are trying to do to help them in their IoT journey. So I'm going to start off just with a few words about Sierra Wireless for those of you who may not be familiar with us. We're actually a Canadian company founded 25 years ago. We are in the business of IoT, and that's the only thing we do. We do coming from a background in the hardware space, providing modules to be embedded in products to be connected and providing gateways. And we have customers across the globe and also presence all over the globe. And we have been leading and innovating in the IoT space for a very long time. So that's our business. And but we're not only providing hardware. We actually have three different main cornerstones that our market offering is built upon. First of all, we have the intelligent edge devices. With that, I mean the embedded products that are embedded into the products that are to be connected to the internet and to back-end applications and services. But it's not enough with the modem. You also need to have the SIM card to go in there to get access to the cellular networks. And we also provide those SIM cards and the managed connectivity services to make sure that the SIM card and the connectivity is always up and running. And the third part of our market offering is the cloud services. We have a cloud platform, AirVantage, that is used to manage all the devices, all the SIM cards and the connectivity. And it's also used to develop applications to benefit from the data that is collected from the devices out in the field, from the sensors and so on. So basically, we are providing the components that are needed, the plumbing that is needed to connect any product anywhere in the globe with the back-end systems and applications. And as I mentioned, we've been around for 25 years, and we're the market leader in connectivity hardware and connectivity services, which means that we are today we have the benefit of working closely with customers in basically all kinds of industries and segments, which helps us, of course, to drive our development and innovation of new products and services. For example, we've been working closely with many within the automotive and transport segment, which is one of the key drivers now within the IoT space, with all the new applications and services coming around, connecting cars, providing connectivity, transportation services, and so on. But let's take a look at where this world is going now. And I think we all know that we are living in a world that's becoming more and more connected. There's new businesses are born every day which are benefiting from the new technology, providing new kinds of products and services. There's new business models emerging as it's possible to deliver new kinds of services and applications that were not possible a couple of years ago. But it's also challenging times for many existing businesses, and it's a time of actually that could lead to a very tough future for them if they are not adapting and embracing the new kind of technology that is coming up. So how are the business changing at the moment? Well, looking from a product perspective and a product company that used to deliver products, cars, copy machines, smart meters, whatever, and they were not connected. Once you send it out of the shop to the customer, it was up to them to use it in whatever way they wanted. But that's not the reality anymore. Now the customers are expecting all the products to be connected. They should be online. They should be accessible in real time. They should be upgradable and so on. And maybe what used to be a product company will not be a product company, but actually a service company in the future. Customers are willing to pay for the value and the services that comes with the product, but they may not want to actually own the product. And here's a great change in how many of the companies today need to adapt what they're offering to the customers. And historically, companies have delivered, in many cases, local products to local markets and customized them to local needs. But now customers are expecting the products to work across the globe in the same way as they do at home. And this is also challenging for the customers, for companies that used to deliver products. The IT infrastructure used to be quite simple. You had everything in the company, but now you need to manage hundreds of thousands of connected products across the globe. And how do you do this in a secure manner? So how do you, as a company, try to embark on this IoT journey? It is a very complex and challenging task. And the number one question you have to ask yourself is, of course, how will you create new values to your customers? But once you have a clear view of that, there's still a lot of questions that you need to start addressing. The first part is the development phase is very often underestimated. It's difficult to get all the technical pieces together. It's an advanced technical project, and it often requires much more time and resources than what is expected. And there's also a risk there, of course, that you actually miss your window of opportunity. Secondly, there's depending on the solution and how it's built up and set up, there's also a risk that the management and the operations of your IoT solution becomes extremely complex and costly, and can become a huge hazard for you as a company in the longer perspective over the entire life cycle of the IoT solution. Another aspect that is often seen as the number one concern for companies looking into IoT is security, and righteously so, because it's a very complex and difficult issue to understand what are the risks and how am I going to address these. There's many different aspects and dimensions of the security perspective. And how do you ensure that the solution that you set up will support the business transformation that you're looking for, and not limit it? So looking a little bit more at the IoT challenges, especially from a global perspective, if you want to develop, deploy, roll out, manage, and operate an IoT solution, there are many challenges that you need to understand and address already when you are designing your setup and your solution. If you're going to build products that will work in multiple geographical markets, and if you're going to have a solution that is based on different components from different suppliers, you can easily get into such a situation which is challenging from a supply and logistic perspective, from a support perspective, and from a management perspective. So all of these different challenges, we see that there is an urgent need from the market to be addressed in a good way, enable the easy rollout and development and rollout of new IoT solutions. And I'm now going to talk about 4 of these different key areas that we have identified and that we are trying to address through the solutions that we're providing to our customers and to the market. So if we start looking at the development side of an IoT project, there is what we have tried to do is to make our customers' lives easier by actually developing a global connectivity out-of-the-box solution. By that, I mean something that will make it easier for customers to start addressing a new opportunity. And the reason that if we look at what a customer needs from a technical perspective to start building a connected product or connected service, first of all, you need, of course, the module and the routers that goes into the product. You need the SIM cards and the connectivity, and you need this to be global in case you are going to address a global market. And then you need the platform. And getting all of these things together and to work properly together, you need to understand what are the different standards, what are the different specifications out there, what are the alternatives when it comes to interfaces and so on. And you don't only want to build a proof of concept or a pilot, but you want to start building a solution that you can deploy globally, and then you can manage. And these are building blocks that Sierra Wireless has now been able to put together into one solution, what we call the Ready to Connect solution. That means that we are providing pre-connected devices, modules that are ready to, at power up, start sending data immediately to a platform. the ready-to-connect solution includes the SIM cards from us providing global connectivity, and these are EURCC-enabled SIM cards, which means that if you at some point in the future need to replace your connectivity with some other connectivity, we have the tools and the mechanisms to update these SIM cards over there. The global connectivity that we're providing is resilient in the way that we have access to virtually all networks across the globe, and we have access to all these different networks through different routes, so that we are not dependent on any specific networks or any specific routes. We can reach every network in many different ways. And then we can provide a unified operation platform for the solution. So by putting all these things together and being able to deliver it as a solution, our customers will get a module, a gateway, or a router that they can immediately connect to their device, power it up, and make it start delivering data wherever it is across the globe. And by being able to putting all this together in our factories, and we are able to provide the kind of security that is needed to address the threats that are out there. And I will come back a little bit to how we address security and business flexibility through the ready-to-connect solution. So how does this help our customers to simplify the development? As I said, the result is that it takes the task of connectivity development and makes it so much easier. Today, there are so many steps that a company that wants to connect their products need to go through to go from a prototype to a deployed solution across the globe. And with the ready-to-connect, we can actually reduce and remove many of these challenging tasks and make the development phase much simpler and much shorter in time. For instance, you don't need to use multiple SIM cards from different suppliers in order to get access to different global markets. You don't need to test different devices that are certified for different markets. We provide one pre-connected device that is available immediately at power up wherever you do that. So once you have developed your IoT solution, you go into the deployment and operation phase. And this is, of course, where the real costs are for a company deploying IoT solutions. And looking at, I would like first to emphasize what was mentioned by Julian in his section, that we strongly believe that the LPWA technology is going to be a catalyst and boost the IoT market, especially in the kind of applications that he mentioned. Historically, there's been different cellular technologies, the 2G, 3G, 4G that are out there today, but they, in many cases, needed or were adapted to specific or required specific certification for specific markets, like in the US. But with the LPWA, it will be possible for Sierra and other companies to deliver modules, products, and services that will be truly global, and that will enable the IoT in a new way by having more cost-efficient, low power usage, and better coverage hardware that will make the deployment of IoT services much easier. So LTM and the IoT will be providing global coverage in a way that we have not seen before. And we are providing all of these and supporting these technologies, and we already see the first customers start rolling out services on this. But in order to simplify and to streamline the operations of an IoT solution, one of the key aspects is to have a truly unified platform for managing all the different aspects of the IoT solution. You need one platform to manage all your devices, making it possible to update, check the status, reconfigure your devices wherever they are and whatever kind of device it is. You need a platform to manage all your connectivity, independent if who has provided the connectivity. We are in our platform supporting third-party SIM cards and third-party connectivity providers, so that our customers can use our platform to manage all their connectivity and SIM cards, independent of who has provided it. And then you need an application platform that is ready to receive the data from the devices, to store, to visualize the data. And the AirVantage platform has all the tools and mechanisms needed to actually develop and build the application. But for customers that are using third-party cloud platforms like Google or Amazon, it's also possible to connect and transfer data further on to other applications and cloud platforms. So, looking into the challenge of the security, IoT security is about managing the chain, and it's not stronger than the weakest part of the chain. So, one key aspect is to address security already from the start and from the design. It's not possible to bolt on security after the IoT solution has been developed and deployed. It needs to be there from the start. And there's also many different layers and levels of security and different aspects that needs to be considered. And Sarah is looking at this from different aspects and from different layers, and trying to address all the different aspects that are needed. The ready to connect devices includes, first of all, non-removable SIM cards, which means it's physically impossible to steal and misuse the SIM cards. They are pre-provisioned with security keys to enable secure management and connection of the device to the platform, and mutual authentication and encryption between the platform and the device. And secondly, another aspect of security is to have high availability infrastructure to make sure that there are no single points of failure in the infrastructure between the device and the platform. And what we can provide is a secure device-to-cloud channel with mutual authentication and encryption between the device and the platform, to ensure that the information exchange between the device and the platform is protected and not tampered with. Finally, how can we help our customers to best realize their business needs and their business potential? Today, many companies are facing challenges with aligning their business model to the revenue streams and the revenue streams to their investments and their operational cost structure. And this can be a limiting factor when they want to launch new kinds of applications and services. In many cases, there are very different needs when it comes to how the business is set up and how the cost structure is best aligned with the expected revenue models. We see customers who are very much CapEx driven. They are based towards initial investments in infrastructure, and they want to minimize their operational expenditures. And there are also companies that want to maybe sell new kinds of products with a lifetime connection, and they are not ready to sell a subscription, or it's not part of their business model. They want to provide a product which is connected for a lifetime. Other customers have not maybe as strong equity, and they want to be able to grow quickly without making huge initial investments. It could be startups, for instance, that have a business model which is with revenues coming from based on the usage, and they're not ready to make large investments because that would limit their possibility to grow. So since Sierra can provide all the parts of the solution, we can be very flexible in how we package and price a solution, and we can meet the customer's specific needs to enable them to align the cost side with their expected revenue streams. So just to finish off, looking at some of the costs that are maybe not normally foreseen or expected when you start looking at an IoT project. And this is based on some of the experiences that we've seen on the market. And we've seen, for instance, customers that have had their SIM card stolen and misused, which has cost them, in one case in Europe, there was a company who had just a couple of SIM cards stolen, which then was used up to $500,000 before they managed to detect and stop this. Others have problems with malware attacks on IoT devices. That's known, and that can be really devastating for a business. Here it says 2-3 days. I think it could be much more before you recuperate from that kind of attack. Another cost that maybe not is always foreseen or expected when you start looking into IT is what are the costs that we'll see from this, the manufacturing and the management of the solution. If you get into a situation where you need to manually assemble your products because you have a lot of different SIM cards from different SIM suppliers to address different markets geographically, that will add a lot of cost to your production. If you get into a solution where you have many platforms to manage your services, maybe you have platforms from different MNOs, SIM suppliers, you have platforms from device suppliers, and so on. You will get into an operation situation where you actually have to have quite substantial resources into managing your solution. And a third example that we've seen is customers which roll out infrastructure across vast geographical areas. It could be smart metering, for instance. And that kind of solutions can be alive for 10, 15 years. And if they get into a situation where they are locked into their supplier, the SIM supplier, the connectivity supplier, it's going to be very difficult for them to actually swap out the SIM cards, which they could be forced to if over these kind of long time spans, the connectivity provider that you chosen may not be able to deliver your connectivity service 5 years from now. There might be shutting down the 2G network, for instance, and then your smart meters will be offline. But if you find have a solution based on EUICC, you will be able to remotely update the devices and download new SIM profiles, new subscriptions from an alternative supplier at the cost which is much lower compared to having trucks roll out to every smart meter. So with that, I would like just to conclude by suggesting that you visit our website and download some of our white papers where you can read more about what Sierra Wireless is doing today and how we're trying to address these different challenges that we see on the market when embarking on the IoT journey. Okay, with that, I think I'm done.
All right, thank you so much.
Over to you, Ken.
That was great. And here we're going to jump into our Q&A section. So let's have both of you guys get ready to start answering. And I'm going to go easy on you here at the beginning. First off, our first question here is a really simple, easy one. Are Sierra's solutions available globally, worldwide?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we are today providing our services across the globe, basically in all countries. So our connectivity services are everywhere, and we have hardware products that are that can be used in all markets. So yes.
All right. Up next is a bit of a clarification of terms. One of our listeners wasn't sure what a truck roll support is and what you meant by that term. So if you could just give us a working definition.
I think that was mentioned by Julian as well, but by that we mean actually support situations where you need to send out a field engineer to do work on your installation to fix something that is broken, change the SIM card that stopped working, or similar.
That's right. All right, so that's enough of the softballs for you. So our next question here, questioner is saying or is asking that in the title it explicitly mentions ROI and speeding process. What specific methods can a developer or implementer use to create that ROI and in their industrial IoT projects? Now, obviously, that's a big question, so I'm going to narrow it down just a little bit and ask you to provide, say, one tip or one example where an implementation led to some measurable ROI.
I think in general, I think you need to, if we're looking at return on investment, you need to understand clearly how are you creating value to your customers, and how are the increased. In many cases, I think now the IoT projects are not only about increasing the revenues, but reducing the cost for running services and so on, and improving the efficiency of your services.
I think so. I think that at least in the stage that we're in now and for the next few years, finding operational efficiencies is going to be a critical measure of ROI. Let's see here. Why? So this next question, it looks like, is specifically directed at Julian. So Julian, we're gonna tap into you here. Why would someone select cellular over other low-cost alternatives such as LoRaWAN or Sigfox or RPMA or one of the other options that are out there?
So thanks. That's a great question. So obviously the likes of Sigfox and LoRaWAN have had a lot of exposure over the last couple of years because of their relatively aggressive marketing, the low-cost nature. But I think ultimately the choice of technology should be shaped by the use case, this very specific use case, and the enterprise requirements. So these technologies both address what we call the massive and the more sort of mission critical IoT. So for applications that require higher levels of bandwidth, so I'd say automotive infotainment, cellular would be the right choice because the other unlicensed technologies cannot provide that type of bandwidth. But if we're talking about applications that require deep reach, long battery life, consume limited data, so there are a range of options. So if you think about which technology that you should adopt, the type of questions I think you should ask are, what's the application designed to do? Are you taking data from sensors and analyzing the data in the cloud? Or are you using the connectivity to actuate or control a system that operates in real time? Another big question I'd say is the technology I'm considering available in all the countries and sites where I have devices or assets? So at the moment, cellular really is the only technology that does that. Because Sigfox and LoRaWAN have not been deployed globally yet. So even in the UK, there's a patchwork of LoRaWAN coverage. It's not even available across the country. Does my application require mobility and voice support? I think that's a critical one. So for instance, Cat M1 does at the moment, but obviously Sigfox and LoRaWAN don't. And so really ultimately enterprises should consider various options. Price is a big factor, but not the most important factor in determining whether to go for cellular or an unlicensed option. So where I think cellular has really key advantage is one, open standards. So enterprises considering cellular have some visibility into where it's evolving and whether it will meet their future requirements. So another big factor, I think, this was mentioned in the previous presentation. So many countries have at least 3 mobile operators. So there's choice of mobile operators. But with Sigfox and LoRaWAN, there's far, far less choice. So any network failure could be highly disruptive. Another real benefit of cellular is the ability to deliver over-the-air updates and patches, so security being a really big issue. So cellular supports these, Sigfox and LoRaWAN do not. So I think those are really the key benefits of cellular.
Yeah, and I'm gonna keep with you, Julian, here for a second for a sort of not really a follow-up, but an adjacent question here. How will low-power wide area networks grow the IoT addressable market for cellular? And how are they going to sort of intersect and work together?
Okay, so I think today's non-LPWA cellular networks, so GPRS is still widely used. They're not optimized for the requirements of the IoT. So I think, as we've discussed before, increasingly devices and assets that enterprises would like to connect require long battery life, very deep coverage, into basements and deep into buildings, and relatively low cost modules if you're going to deploy at scale. So compared with yesterday's network, so 2G, GPRS, LPWA just really makes it technically and economically feasible to connect devices that could not have been connected before. So really two areas. So two areas where we think there's going to be a lot of growth. Firstly, sort of the whole area of logistics and asset management. Applications like animal tracking, package tracking, feedstock management. That's seeing a lot of attention with LPWA networks, and also infrastructure, environmental monitoring, areas like street lighting, waste management, agricultural apps. So as you mentioned, increasingly there will be some intersection of these verticals, so particularly within the smart city environment. So actually having a single network or a single type of cellular network that can really interoperate between these different verticals is really key. But as I said before, low power wireless networks won't be suitable for all applications. Those requiring more bandwidth, like automotive infotainment.
All right, Stefan, you're back on the hook here for. It looks like we've got time for maybe one, maybe two more questions here. One of our listeners says that he or she has a variety of devices to manage, and wants to know if the Advantage platform can support different devices from different manufacturers or just Sierra devices.
No, the Advantage platform supports management of all kinds of devices, as long as they're supporting standard protocols such as OMA, lightweight M2M. So that's not an issue. We can manage those as well, and using standard protocols also for interacting with other back-end applications using MQTT and so on. So it's a standard-based platform that can be used with other suppliers, and devices, and back-end systems.
Awesome. And let's see, this one is also for you, Stefan. You talked about simplifying development and sort of streamlining the development process. Can you give us a sort of ballpark estimate of the time to market that this kind of process, this simplification process, can save for a company? Maybe a percentage.
We normally it's very much dependent on the customer and the case, of course, but normally you could expect that it's actually about 18 to 24 months to run this kind of project from idea and start until you actually have commercial services products out and running. We see that by using this kind of out-of-the-box solutions, it's possible to cut this in half, reducing with 9 to 12 months, because it simplifies so much of the initial technical parts of the project, which is just the challenges are removed, and you basically get an out-of-the-box connected product, and you can start looking at the application instead of trying to figure out how to get the connection working.
Right, and I think we have time for one last one here. If you can promise to be quick, how do you address legacy equipment? The question specifically calls out for data collection and sensors and I guess edge devices, but I think that the legacy equipment question can be a little bit broader than that. As you're setting up a more modern cellular network, how do you address legacy equipment? Are you talking about hardware upgrades and that kind of thing, or are there ways to work around that stuff?
Well, I think it's not a short, simple answer to that. I think it depends so much on what kind of products and services we're talking about. But usually, if they're not designed initially to be connected, you need to do hardware upgrades and add on the components needed to be able to connect them, I would say.
I think that makes sense, and you've done a wonderful job being concise. And I think our listeners out there will be able to continue sending in questions. Of course, our speakers will get the list of questions that we didn't get to. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question out there, folks. So they'll be trying to answer those after the fact, but we are just about out of time. There's currently a link up on your screens, folks out there. We invite you to click that link and take a look at some additional materials that are going to be really interesting for you and really relevant. But I would like to thank both Julian and Stefan for a wonderful presentation as we wrap up here on having fully simplified the IoT and created all the ROI. So I consider that a great success. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you to all our listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you.